where we started the fire, as you can see. And our guest speaker today, Cameron Rouse, is dialing in from Heidelberg, Germany. And together with him is also Edina Sewell, his colleague. And for those of you who do not know us and join us for the first time, we are Dana and John Betan, co-founders of the Design Sprint Academy here in Berlin. We are a consultancy firm dedicated to help teams and organizations define and solve their biggest business challenges throughout problem framing and design sprints. So for the past 5 years, we've been working with the world's biggest brands and help them build and scale their internal capabilities with our training programs and also with workshop facilitation. And we're so excited to be sharing with you some of the lessons learned and insights from the projects we had with SAP, one of our top clients. And to give you a quick roadmap of today's session, we're going to have a fireside chat with Cameron Rouse, leading the DevX Challenge initiative at SAP, and dive deep into what it means to spark a growth mindset and get teams feeling inspired about solving big challenges that go way beyond their daily duties or even their comfort zone. But before we begin, here's a little housekeeping. This session will be recorded and made available to you in the next few days. Also, feel free to use the Q&A section that you're going to see in the chat to add your questions, and we'll do our best to answer those questions throughout the webinar. And also, this webinar will take about 1 hour, and we try to finish by 7 p.m. Central European time. Thanks again for joining us, and I'm so excited to get this conversation starting. And I'm going to give the mic, we actually have a big mic here, to John. And
hi everyone, thanks for joining. Dana said she's excited about this. Actually, so am I. I'm looking forward to this conversation because I've known and I've been working with Cameron for, I guess it's 2 years now. And I know how much energy and excitement he brings into everything that he does. And sorry, I don't want to put so much pressure on you, but we'll get you started right now. So Cameron, welcome. Even though we've been working together for a while, I still think I can't introduce you with a proper title because I don't know your title. I know you don't believe in titles either. So how would you introduce yourself and what's your role at SAP?
Yeah, good. First of all, I just want to say, John and Dana, I've just come back from holiday. And like, there's things that you've just forgotten. Like, I didn't forget my password, but I had to think about it for a little bit, you know. What was the password? What do I need to take to work? Because I'm now back in the workplace, which is a really cool place to be, to collaborate with colleagues. And it's been a tough year, and we've learned a lot. So yeah, the question, it's a really hard question, and I think I don't want to be seen as a put this person in this basket because my roles in my career have been basically I'll give it a try. That sounds really cool. I'll give it a try. And I think first of all, I've been told, or let's just say, I want to just put this down first of all. I'm not a designer. Okay, I'm not a developer. So I don't want to, and I think that there's a lot of people. We are trying to facilitate and bring the right people together to collaborate, and we're looking at problems that we think require multiple stakeholders. They're the hairy challenges, the ones that we think that do you want to step into this because things will go wrong, and it will be a learning exercise. But the question was, how would I describe my role? So I think from my past, I've been a business analyst. I've been a risk and performance guy. I've got a lot of experience with, really made a lot of friends being an auditor. So that's a joke, an internal auditor. I should make the difference there. So I've got a real, let's say, curiosity to understand a process. What are the inputs? What are the outputs? And how you can improve that. And I've had, let's say, exposure to a lot of different processes. And I think up to, it was about 4 years ago that I made this big jump, and I went to, let's say, creative customer facing events, and I got to work with different people, learn different things, and I got to discover the creative side. But I walked away feeling that I wanted more out of it, that if I don't want bums on seats. If you have an audience for 2, 3, 4 days, make it immersive, make it intensive. And I think I don't want to, I think some of the other questions will go a little bit further, but I think I think I've got in my LinkedIn profile no titles, it's about roles, and I think that is definitely a culture thing that I think is required today.
Yes. And I see you have a guest.
Yes. Yeah, so this is a surprise guest, and I'll just do the intro for her. So Adina and I have had a chance to work together. She's worked with me, and now she's more of the, let's say, the business stakeholder, and she's come back wanting to come into our activities and be the decision maker. But Adina, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Thank you so much. So it's a pleasure being part of this discussion today. So thank you very much for inviting me. As Cameron mentioned, there are a lot of different roles at SAP, and I was also privileged through a program where we can do fellowships to really come together with Cameron and define this so-called DevX challenge we're going to discuss about. And seeing the success and talking to customers now in my follow-up role as a solution manager in the public sector, I'm really, really looking forward to bring back this format to connect to our customers and come up with some innovative ideas. But let's find out a little bit more about the DevX challenge.
Perfect. Speaking of the DevX challenge, when we met 2 years ago, Cameron, we met when you and your team joined our training here in this office.
Yeah.
And at the end of one day, you grabbed me and you're like, John, I need to share something with you. Like, this is so exciting. And I don't remember all of the conversation, but I vividly remember your passion and how you were talking about it. And you're talking about the DevX challenge and what you're doing. So can you share with the rest of our audience, like, what is the DevX challenge? What is this format that you have at SAP?
Good. I think I have prepared some slides, but just a little bit of an intro to that. So Adina, you can bring up the slides, and that first slide. I've got 3 slides. That's it. I promise you, because we want this to be about conversation. But I think it's important to just get the intro into that conversation. So I tried hackathons, and I'm a real let's say a supporter of hackathons. We've done some design thinking workshops, and then we were doing this design sprint, and it reminded me of something that I did 20 years ago with an airline, and how inclusive it was, how there was this focus of it's not the highest paid person in the room that's going to drive the decisions, that there is this that you can present your ideas and not be judged on who it is that's delivering it, because you're doing it anonymously. So there's a few things in the recipe that really just sounded the alarm bells. Hey, this is something that we've got to run with in a positive sense. The alarm bells. So so let's just start with what is the DevX challenge and how we've got to where we are today. Because I think it's for us, I just want to say it's a learning experience. It's about collaboration. It's inclusive. We've been doing this for the last 2 years. We are trying to help teams that come together for the first time. So they're in one location, and we get support from that location, so from the site manager for those locations. And we say to them, we want to do something with the local ecosystem. We believe the local ecosystem is important because your employees will behave differently. Because it's local, they have more skin in the game, they see more opportunity to connect afterwards, and we're just, let's say, sort of a catalyst. We try and create narratives that are related, that fit new criteria. So, sustainable mobility, food to fork with the EU Green Deal, for example. So looking at the choices that we made, crisis planning, we're looking at the climate situation. And I think there's one side where there is a lot, the planet is warming up, things are happening, and we're trying to reduce emissions, for example. But on the other side, we're living in this reality, and you see it in the news every day, that crisis planning needs to be stepped up, it needs to be integrated, it needs to be more intelligent. We need to share resources across, regions, borders, for example, and share that knowledge so that we can, save lives.
So really big, meaningful challenges that you're tackling with a local flavor. All right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're always looking for fast outcomes. So I was told by managers, what, 5 days? You're taking my employees out of the office for 5 days. So what is it? You're telling them what is it that they're getting out of it? Is it a learning experience? So I think maybe I can just explain what a challenge is. So what is it that we want to get out of it? What is the value? So if we could put a cursor on that first box, happening places, we're making sure that we bring in people from the outside, so stakeholders that provide perspectives that we don't hear from inside our own walls, context to a defined problem. We're giving teams. The next one is really looking at ways that we can, give teams confidence. So looking at, using Design Sprint Academy, for example, people that are, getting tips and tricks from different organizations that we work with. And this is something that is, people are, more than, they jump at that opportunity to share what their recipe for success is. We're upskilling facilitators. So we're giving opportunities to our facilitators to upskill, try something different, or look at a, before they make judgment on, what is better, hackathon, design thinking, design sprint, understand the differences first, and see them side by side and see how they could actually complement one another. And then the last one is really giving teams perspectives from judges that know the problem and want to share what it takes to be successful. And if we've worked with, let's say, mobility providers, so public mobility providers, and they have been the judges, and they've said, when they've seen multiple teams, pitching their ideas, they've said, where the solution is actually a mixture of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We want a little bit of that. And it's amazing how you can give ideas or give inputs to teams, and it's the same thing. They're hearing the same voices, they have the same constraints, but they come out with radically different ideas. And it all comes from, a little bit about the portfolio that they're exposed to, or the mix in the teams, and we like that diversity. So a challenge, we have to define what a challenge is. Internally, we have all sorts of like photo challenges and video challenges and things that take, a little bit of time out of your day, but make people happy. Our challenge is a little bit more intensive. It's a combination of all of those things above. We're focused on problem solving. So I'm not going to say it's about innovation. It's about solving a real problem. In mixed teams, it's getting your perspective, because the problems that we're sharing are things that you can relate to in your daily lives. So we chose the topic of mobility as our sustainable mobility as our first topic, because we knew that when you listen to conversations in the coffee area or in the canteen, it was about the commute, it was about pollution, it was about accidents, it was about what you're ordering online, and the multiple deliverers. And I think things have changed radically with the pandemic.
And so Cameron, how does the process look like? Like how do team problem solve? Like what's all right?
Thanks, Adina. So I think I think when we look at a process, yeah, traditionally you have this, let's say there's an element of this planning, and then there is the hackathon or the design sprint or the design thinking workshop. We have this, we invest a lot of time in making sure that we deliver that context up front. It's not about how to innovate. It's about, this is the problem and this is how this person sees it. So we came up with a really simple format that's called the primer talk. If you look in the Urban Dictionary, you'll find a reference to the primer talk. I really wanted to take that piece of real estate. So the primer talk is, we want to get perspectives from, let's say, four different players. So those perspectives could, vary from Greta to a political leader's ambitions. It's and they could be very there could be a lot of friction between those, but we're trying to understand, well, where is the common place? We ask 4 questions. Those same 4 questions are repeated to it. There are variations of this. We have changed it, but basically it's still to that recipe. Those 4 questions are then, we create a summary of that, and we provide that to teams, as well as all of the inputs that those experts give us. And there is an opportunity for them to go into it. So I think that's the context before, and the context before helps the outcomes big time.
And this context, you're giving it to teams. How long before they need to solve a problem? Like,
yeah, good. So in the old world, we were doing physical events, right? And we would go to a location. We'd have our facilitators. So let's say we would go to Dublin, or we'd go to Berlin, or we would go to Munich. And in that world, we would be there for the week. So we would have to have the primer talk the day before, on the Monday, and then the reveal night on the Friday, and try and pack everything in. So it was radically, we tried everything, and we always got the results. But I think now, with what we've learned with doing everything, there is this focus on well-being. There is this focus on, zero emission events. There is a focus on making sure that everything that we create, we can recycle it. So I would like to talk about circular assets that we create, that we do this in one location and we take it to the next location, and you will see dramatically different results. Whether it is because of, it might be a cultural, it might be geographic in terms of, if you talk about mobility or circular, it depends on the situation. Are you bringing things in from the outside, or is it just on the fringe of your city? Yeah, I'll stick to the practice. The reveal night is the last part. It's the opportunity to celebrate, have some fun. I think something that is quite unique is we're not making this available to everybody. It's what the participants want, who they want to be there, who they want to impress. So everybody that's been involved is there. It's not for marketing's sake. It's for outcomes. And the path forward for us is giving them a reference to, well, when the next challenge comes up in another area of SAP, whether it's a hackathon or whether it is the various initiatives that we have, that they feel more confident, that they can bring their ideas, and they actually know some people and worked with people and have a reference to what those skills are, whether they're a designer, a developer, an architect, or just somebody that can sell ice cream to
Cameron, taking you a little bit earlier in the process, after the primer talk, right, which is setting the context, inviting the experts to provide this kind of information that you don't have inside your organization, what happens next? I see something that says onboarding, and then like the middle part. Can you talk a little bit?
Yeah, okay. So in this example, we call it the workout. In this example, it's a design sprint. It's 5 days. So those the 5 days, there is this traditional design sprint, and you can correct me, but what has been given to us was, we would go to our customer, the customer would come into a workshop and we would facilitate something. We're using the same method, but what we're doing is we're saying, okay, the primer talk is the opportunity for the customer, but also the industry, the ecosystem to talk about what is the solution. And then for the employees to, use their ideas, use their diversity, use their backgrounds. And there is a mixture of the know-it-alls, right? Who I would say probably go for the hackathon. To the learn-it-alls, they need some facilitation. The first time, the second time they don't. And basically, we have split it up. So I think I mentioned this 5 days. How can you take people out for 5 days? So we've said to them, it's just 3 days. Right. In the last sequences that we've done. So we've done 3 days. Then we get a bit of a, because we're trying to industrialize this, we get a prototyping team to come in, and we try to make sure that that prototyping team has a nice, let's say, UX standard, UI standard, that they take it, that it supports, the design principles that we have, or
Cameron, during those 3 days, right? Because we have 3 workshop days, as you said, like who takes part in this? It's SAP employees?
So it's SAP employees, plus we involve the people that were involved in the primer talks. So let's say if we use mobility as an example, or if we use food to fork. So food to fork is something that we're working on at the moment. It is related to this EU Green Deal. It is about the circular economy. It is about food choices. It is about the nudges that we need to create for making the right choices that's ultimately save the planet. I don't want to get too visionary, but that's what we're trying to foster. And
I also have like a more tactical question, how do you recruit the teams for those 3 days?
So we go as high up as possible, and usually in a location we have we'll have an MD, and that MD,
managing director.
Managing director. Thank you. Acronyms are, it's a habit. So we have an MD, or we have somebody that is part of the community, and it really depends on each location. So some locations have communities that have existed for a long time, and they're looking for new content, and we're just an as a service, let's say, as a challenge as a service like concept. So we do the work for them. We give them inputs on what happened in the previous location. They have this feeling that, okay, we're going to show, Munich is going to show Berlin what it really should look like. And so there is that, that passing forward from a challenge perspective. And they're the ones that ultimately that we have to go to, that they bring those community people, those people up in the ladder. And then if we've got any friends of previous participants, they're usually more than they encourage it as well.
So it's voluntary, but with the support from and the blessings from the management.
Yeah, exactly. So it's relevant to their job, because they're coming from, let's say, a product area, and we're breaking silos, which is an important concept. It's about an inclusive culture. It's about making sure that ideas can be shared across different board areas, different product areas, and that different solutions can solve problems if they're combined or they're repurposed.
And also, when you go and do a challenge, like you go to a location and you run this challenge, how many people get to be involved, or how many teams participate?
Yeah, so I think we've had the two extremes. I think the first time we did a remote design sprint, it was one team, The focus was proving that this remote process is going to work, and whatever we can do to improve it is going to work. I would say that there is the limit has always been that you have a reveal night, right? And that you can't go more than 90 minutes. So you have to decide on what those teams. So we've had up to 12 teams, which we had to go through like a preliminary heat and then get down to 7 teams. And those teams have, literally, 10 minutes with Q&A to pitch their ideas. And that's quite demanding. But when you see when they see what has happened before, that they have an impression already of how, what a good, how they can influence judges by knowing who those judges are.
So Cameron, there is an element of scale, right? Each time you're doing a DevX challenge, you need to have a certain number of teams involved.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really important that we have multiple ideas presented at the end, and I think that's an outcome for us, that you have this mixture of ideas, and that those decision makers from outside can influence the people on the inside by saying, "Hey, this is really cool."
Cool. Just 1 second, Debbie and Sean, I see your questions, and actually that's kind of how we're going to end this presentation. And Cameron and Dina are going to talk about what's in it for us, what's the value. Just to say that. Good. Going back to the teams, it's clear you have the SAP employees who are involved in here. I want to talk a little bit about facilitation and how these teams are led. Obviously, we're facilitating some of these workshops, but it's not only us at DSA doing it, and that's important, right?
Yeah, it is, because ultimately you are learning from. We want to scale, right? And I think there is a certain element of learning from different providers, and I think I think we came up against a wall when we were looking for people that could do it remote, and you said we've got an answer. And so that was, we had a really good experience with our people, but it's about giving them a benchmark, right? And we want to give our internal people a benchmark, and then there's things that when facilitators are doing this, and if I talk about design thinking workshops, they've come to us in the past and they've said to us, "Oh, how do I prepare? What do I need to, who's going to be leading this? Because I need to make sure that everything's right." And we just say to them, "It's all done. It's all prepared. You literally need an hour, an hour onboarding, and the rest of it is staged for you." So you need to have had some exposure to it in the past, but we trust that knowing what you know and having done what you've done in the past, that you can do this. And this is the secret to really getting that scale that we want. And we're not there. In no way are we at the scale that we'd like to be. And I think, there is.
But you're getting there. I mean,
exactly.
Getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. We're getting there in terms of, we have the resources, we have the package that will help us, and it's more about getting that. You asked the question about audience acquisition. I think we need to change the concept. It's not necessarily, we've stuck to local because we believed that local was important, but it can still be local, and at the same time, simultaneously, you're running other local events, and that they get presented in one big thing. And I think that is the silver lining for remote delivery. Or I'll say, I don't want it to be all remote. We would like it to be hybrid, and we've got to convince, and it's easy to convince people why it should be hybrid, especially with just, people wanting to connect, regardless of the situation. And I'm talking about the pandemic.
Yeah, that was exactly my question, like the difference between in-person workshops and remote ones. How do you see that? Like, which one worked better, or what's your impression?
Yeah, I think things are, I can't really make a judgment now, because I think it's just too early, but we had a lot of fun with the on-site activities, because you're able to really engage people in the way that we feel comfortable engaging, and we're throwing post-it notes here and there, and we're really engaging with our facilitators, and they're allowed to take that time and take you to the corner, and for me it's like they'll come to me and say, Cameron, you're going into the solution mode, stop. Just stop. And there's good facilitators that are really good at taking people like me out and saying, hey, stop. Or other people that just say, look, this is too much. This is too much. It doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen that they walk away. You convince them, and then the second day they come back and they go, I'm glad that I stayed. So I think I think remote for me is rich in terms of we could talk about the replay report, but I think I have to sell that. But the replay report is a living sort of like reference of what has been done and how it has been done, and you do it once and you can share it with people that are going to do this in the future, and they can see straight away, okay, I understand how this process works, I understand the value, and I understand how I can use it. And it should get lighter for the facilitator as well. So the facilitator is more like could be more of a timekeeper. But I don't think it's going to work with people that are doing it for the first time, and that's our focus point. People that come back for the second time, that they might they're helping encourage the people in the mix that are doing it for the first time.
Thanks, Cameron. Now I want to talk a little bit about, and I think you're done with the presentation. You had like those three slides. So I imagine that this is not entirely smooth sailing, right? Like organizing and doing something like this inside such a large organizations. And I think you just said you have to sell this.
Yeah.
So what are some challenges you had to overcome, or you still have to overcome? Like this is the part where we're not so exposed as you are, right? Like we're coming in, we're working with your team, with your facilitators, give the tools, get all of the excitement, but we're not seeing what's behind the scene, orchestrating something like this. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think there's always challenges, whether it is getting doing the audience acquisition, so getting the participants and educating them on what the difference is, because we're a real SAP is design thinking through and through, and when they hear Design Sprint from Google, that's something different. But and I'm being honest, and then you just explain to them, well, okay, think of it like this, and I'm taking this from someone else because it just helps me explain. Design thinking is the cooking course, and Design Sprint is the pasta recipe. It's simple. It's 5 days. There is user testing, and there's prototyping, and you will get a rich high definition prototype at the end of it, and that could be it could be a dashboard, it could be a handheld, it could be an app, it could be lots of other things, but it's pretty much stuck to devices. For us, the presentation is pretty much has been stuck to devices, with the exception of teams presenting things that have been very successful in the first instance, and we've said to them, you were really good in Dublin, we would like to give you a team in Berlin to take your new your concept even further, and we suggest that you do hackathon and that you recruit people for a hackathon, because that will fill the gap. Nice. And so I think that's really important, and I think it's not about Design Sprint and hackathon.
Audience acquisition, one of the challenges. Any others, like maybe selling it to someone, getting approval to run these kind of things?
Yeah, I think the 5 days, I think that comes up. The 5 days, what is the investment? So I think we sell it as 3 days now because it helps us sell it. And it is 3 days, but most people want to come back for, to support or be involved in day 4 and day 5, or oversee that, or have their inputs in it. And we just try and make that, we just suit it to the individuals.
So since you're talking about selling, right, and that's one of the challenges that you're facing, I may just as well link it to the questions that Debbie and Mark are asking. So Debbie is asking, what's the value to SAP for doing this? And also Mark related is asking, what are the top 3 impacts that you feel DevX Challenge has on SAP? So
yeah, good. So I think I'll try and answer them together.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of other innovation programs, and believe it or not, and you invest more time in those innovation programs. So you have a great idea, and that idea, wins a competition, and then you get so much time, months, to develop that idea, talk to customers, go through the whole business canvas, and after activity. And we'd like to say that we're just the stepping platform, that actually we're a feeder to those programs, because there's a lot of people that probably have ideas that they don't have the time for, when they consider that they're going to spend that much time on it. And then the other thing is that we're pressured, or not pressured, but it's important that you don't talk about technology first, right? That you understand what is the problem and what is the new criteria before you start going, oh, I can solve traffic problems because we're gonna focus on street lights, or a new sequence and traffic lights, and we're going to change the traffic patterns. And then it's pitched to somebody, and this is MIT. I'm taking this from MIT, and it's pitched, and then suddenly the person says, well, actually, we're not designing this around cars. We want to design this around people walking, and we want to have footpaths, and we want to have, bikes and scooters and all of that. And I think that's it. So I think one thing was, we think that we're a stepping stone, a reference. We're helping connect people. It's grassroots. We try and make it as grassroots. There's not that pressure to that there is in those other programs, that it's something local. It's something that it's especially important today that you bring it together.
So if I were to summarize, it's about speed, you're feeding other innovation programs, and also you get people into a mindset where they're thinking about what's the problem, right? Before maybe jumping into all sorts of solutions.
I think a good person to ask, and I'll put her on the spot, is we could ask Adina. Adina, what do you have to say about the value of it being an industry business unit representative?
Thank you. May I just add to it what you said, Cam, is that I think it's very unique regarding the SAP participants, because as you mentioned, the participants come from different areas from SAP, and sometimes maybe somebody who is working in the HR department never had nothing to do with developing or participating in the hackathon, because they have this hurdle to say, okay, I am not a developer, but they might have this little sparking idea that is the right one. So bringing together these people, and maybe people who are actually not as loud, they don't voice their ideas that loud, but through the design sprint, to this methodology what we are using, we're giving the platform to all of these people to bring in the ideas. And I think this is how they spark each other, and this is how kind of get together with the best ideas. Also locally, we are very inspired through that we are talking to the local ecosystem, to the business ecosystem. And as Cameron mentioned, we went to Dublin, we went to Berlin, we went to Munich also. And in Dublin, we talked to the city. We understood their challenges, and then they reached out to their network and they said, "Hey, look, there's SAP. They have some innovative people. They have the technology, and they want to really talk to us because those people who are working in the labs, they actually also part of the city. They are citizens, and they live through our challenges, and they really understand it. They have passion. They want to solve it." So we bring all of these together, and that actually takes the discussion to a completely different level. So our customers come to us and they feel really comfortable sharing their challenges, and again, bringing in, again, an entire network of different participants, for example, from a city, for example, different mobility providers. So actually this entire business network participants come together, they share their challenges, and they kind of spark these people, the participants, to work on these challenges. And they bring in the entire pride, because if they come up with a smart solution, that could be potentially implemented also in their city. So that gives us this really handle, and again, due to the fact that we are coming up with prototypes at the end of the sessions, end of the week, these are tangible. This is something that they can sort of touch and feel, and we have received a couple of times also the response from our customers that, yes, please, can we get this one done? And I think that this is a completely different level of exchange than having to go to a business meeting. We listen to the customer, then we do our presentation show, we give our slides, we give our technology, but over here we unite and we come up with a prototype. So I think that's very valuable.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think we create leads, right, because of that engagement. And I've had an AE, an account executive, come up and listen to the let's say the primer talks and say, "I've been knocking on this person's door for the last 6 months and no one answers my calls. And how did you get to them? How did you get them to present all of those problems? Because that's really interesting for us." And I said, simply, we just said, we have 500 employees in this location. We'd like to support, your strategy, and we'd like to help you. And this is our part of being part of that community. And then they come and they bring not just their people, not just their ideas, but the whole ecosystem with them. So Dublin was a great example. We had Bleeper bikes. We had a car sharing company. We had a consulting company looking at infrastructure, sharing their ideas. And then, that connected with later on with Berlin later on. And so the conversation continues and you're part of that conversation. And I think that's the important part. You can stay on the sidelines and share your PowerPoints, or you can just get involved, and then you're part of that, let's say, request for proposal maybe in the future, because they know that it's built on trust.
Right. I think this is a good segue into my next question, although you kind of touched on it with the way you answered, but lots of organizations, they do similar events, right? Hackathons, innovation days, chapter days, there are so many names for this kind of initiatives. But then a lot of these initiatives are also associated with the term innovation theater, if that's familiar to you at all. So yeah, my initial question was, how do you ensure that DevX Challenge is not innovation theater on its own, right? And how do you make sure that there's a follow up?
Yeah. So I think that was exactly something right at the beginning. If I go back to, I said before that I was an auditor. Yeah. So I looked at and asked questions and went around the organization and said, so what happened next? So what happened next? And then, understood, well, what is it that improves the outcomes? And what is it that is just, maybe the goal is misrepresented sometimes, that it is not about, well, innovation is, a possibility, but it's more about this creativity. It's more about bringing people together, connecting them and making them work on solutions. And innovation theater, it's just such a weighted, innovation is such a weighted word. And for me, I don't like to use it. I don't like to use it, but I know that people understand it straight away. So it's sort of, for me, this is about problem solving and coming up with options and sharing those options and then taking them that next step. So innovation theatre is definitely, we have to think about how we answer that question. And I think, how we sell it at the beginning is really important.
And I think it's fair to say is that not every single of these DevX challenges, at the end of it, you have this new product or a new idea and everyone is building it, but it's like a conversation that's going on, right? And it's evolving and it's changing people's mindset. And speaking of that, like, is there enough doing one of these DevX challenges, or how many of these initiatives does it take to actually create change or make an impact, right? Because you were talking about all of this impact and conversations, leads and whatnot, but how much effort, how many of these does it take to get there?
So I think we have to stay under the radar for a certain amount of time, because if you create those expectations, if you create bigger expectations, then it sort of blows out. And to be honest, you know how the intensity and the amount of work that we put into it, and how, when it comes to a certain time, I mean, we have volunteers, we have students who are really awesome, who love the idea, and they come in, and I think and we work with at SAP, I think Adina mentioned it, fellowships. So we're running on a rag, when it comes to it's the petrol, or it's not that there's not that much fuel there. And I think we have to add in this well-being idea. So we just do it one at a time, but we're ramping up for a big anniversary next year, which is 50 years SAP. And so I think everything that we do this year is helping us build the assets, build the pitch the ideas that we could do in a much bigger to a much bigger audience.
Talking about it, what do you think that it will be the cadence of those events? Like, if you would have a magic wand, then you could plan everything and do everything. Like, how would you plan those in an ideal scenario?
So I think it's one primer talk with a combination of different, let's say, locations or within a region, and then within those regions, multiple locations, because we have to work with the time zone. And then maybe and then you do that in like every 2 months, and then you chuck in some experimentation where you say, hey, so Germany has never worked with, Adina's going to laugh, Germany has never worked with New Zealand because it's 24 hours in the future, or sorry, 12 hours in the future. And but how could you create, let's say, put three locations, one in the middle, that there is this pass forward idea? And I think we'd really like to experiment with that, because when it comes to crisis planning, I'm living in Germany and I thought I was really safe up until the floods, the floods that happened. And then you look at other locations and they're experiencing fires and floods, every season. And I think there's an opportunity for technology there.
May I just add just real quickly to it that it is also very unique. I think that you take one topic, you take it to different locations, and then you realize there is so much in common, but they always shed a little bit of different angle and view to it. And this is like, what to really stand on each other's shoulder and pass on the good ideas, refine the good ideas to an optimal outcome.
Speaking of the topic, we have one question from Mark Famin. He's saying that they have a hybrid approach, and basically the ideas, the topics are being fed by employees through an online platform over months. So his question is, have you experimented with this kind of format too? And what's been your experience if you did?
So we have a box for submissions that is open for submissions in terms of ideas or themes that we can focus on. But I think, if you're really loose in terms of the constraints, then you will get the things that are just so off kilter. the coffee machine that responds to you and knows that you've walked in the room type of scenario that is really fun for the workplace, but probably has no benefit at the end. But I mean, it's worth experimenting, but not at it's not something that you want to pitch to executives.
I like how this approach, like your approach, where you actually it's challenges where you involve other stakeholders, other actors, right, outside SAP, things that are really meaningful and big challenges worth solving.
Yeah.
Good. I think we're nearing to an end. I think we have another question here.
Because many people in our audience are like innovation managers and they're trying to kick off programs similar to yours.
Okay.
And I think if you were to look back from your lessons learned, what is one advice or maybe two advices that you would give to them when they are at their starting point? When
they try to spark innovation into organization. So what would you advise them to do?
Or not? Anything can happen. I've been really happy that I've had the support over the last 2 years and more now. But I think it's like I looked to have this like perfect, let's say perfect setup, but it's very iterative, and you've got to differentiate. So we have internal competition, right? And I don't want to compete with that internal competition. I want to make sure that whatever we do, it's either they use it as a service, or that we're supporting them by giving them potential participants or potential inputs into a portfolio decision-making process, or a new innovation box of ideas that can be worked on. But where the differentiation for us is that we're not saying, hey, it's a sustainability week, we want you to come up with sustainability solutions. We're choosing a topic and we're saying, this is where we're going to start from. These are the people that you're going to hear from. They are the decision makers today. This is the new criteria that they're faced with. What is the EU Green Deal? I use that as an example. What is the new diesel? What is the implication of diesel bans, for example? What is it that this city wants in terms of their strategy? So no cars. They want to ban cars. They want publics, or that there's this emissions tax. If I were to summarize, what you're advising them is to really tackle important challenges to the business, and then have a process to do it, like a very clear process. This is what we're going to do. This is why we're doing it, and this is how we're going to do this. Yep. And I think we've got to break it into something that works, right? This is really important.
If I may add to it, just making sure that you select the format wherever you can provide it to all of your employees. So inclusion, I think it's a really important aspect, because you never know which area or who is coming from which department, who is bringing that really, really strong idea. And these ideas can become a part of this collaboration, a result of this collaboration. But if you restrict the participation, for example, with a hackathon to only developers, because hackathon sometimes sounds like a little bit like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to hack, so I wouldn't have participated in any of these sessions. But if you make it sure that you create a format wherever it is inviting to a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds, this is this diversity that brings in this spark.
Yeah. And if there was one last plug to add to that, I think we're always asked to be outside of the box, to think outside of the box. And I think what we're doing is, by choosing a topic, we're actually asking them to say, well, should the box actually exist as it does today? So, thinking outside the box is great, but maybe we need to, question the box. And I think there's the World Economic Forum, a book written on the pandemic, and it's called The Great Reset. And that's been a real, precursor to some of the themes or the structure. that there is this reset and that it's going to impact industry, businesses, consumers. So it's a macro, it's micro, it's the individual. And we're trying to focus as much on our employees as individuals, because, you know, you're not going to get, if you keep buying the stuff, then they'll keep making the stuff, right?
Yeah.
And if you turn it around, then and if you think about what is required, then there is this reset has to happen. And yeah, I think regulation might come into place. So it's going to impact investors, it's going to impact businesses, and employees need to understand that, because if they're looking for, like me, you know, ideas to get funding, then that's where if we can dive into that and then say we have the players on the field, and we're playing on that field with them, then we're gonna win. Maybe
we're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to end on this note. Cameron, Edina, thank you so much for being our guest today and sharing all of these insights. So yeah, thanks again, and thank you everyone who's been in the audience and listened to us.
And I saw many people asking about the recording of this session. Don't worry, it's going to be made available to you in the next couple of days, and you'll be able to refresh your memories on a couple of things that were really interesting in this session. So we're looking forward to see every one of you next time. Our next webinar will be about problem framing and how to facilitate this decision making, and it's going to be at the end of September. And we're really hoping to see you guys there. And if not, thank you again, Cameron and Edina. It was like lovely chatting with you, and we really appreciate all your answers.
And just an offer from my side. I mean, if you have any questions, it might be a good idea. We could have like a little bit of a follow-up, activity once we know what those questions are, and it would be much easier than getting lots of questions individually. But I'd really like to use this network that DSA has, and share all of the inputs in terms of, like, I see questions around the max number of participants. You know, John can tell you that. John can tell you that. And we will share the slides, and and we're looking forward to collaborating with you if you want to be a partner.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So in a very German-like way, we're going to finish on time. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.